Welcome to the Switchblade Sisters Social Club, a true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome. I'm Dee.
And I'm Rhonda, and together we are the Sake Sisters. For more information, check out our website at www.switchbladesistersocialclub.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at Switchblade Sisters Social Club.
Thanks for listening. Hi, we are Switchblade Sisters Social Club, and this is me, Dee, and I'm here with my sister, Rhonda.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, I cannot believe we are almost at the end of season 1. We've got this episode and then the next one, and then we're done. But we have a treat for you guys. We're going to take a 4-week break, but at the same time that we normally release episodes, we are going to be re-releasing some of our previous episodes that we did on a previous podcast with topics that you will love.
They're good ones. They are good ones. They're slightly different, but still dark shit.
Yeah, you will love them. And today, for our chit-chat part of the segment,
Can I just say, hold on. You know, we're almost at the end of the season, and I was surprised that we had any listeners at the start, but I'm even more surprised that we have got some loyal listeners who have stayed with us throughout the fucking season. And we have to always tell them how much we love them and appreciate them. And, you know, like I say, they've actually chosen to spend time with us.
Yeah, so special shout out to Gina. We love Gina. Love Gina. We also love Lindsay. We love Karen.
And Karen, can I just make a distinction? We had the Karen who left us a negative review. That is not who we're talking about.
No, although special shout out to her. Hope she's doing well.
Her name wasn't even Karen. That was just an alias to protect her identity because we didn't want her to be trolled for a negative review of us.
No.
But we have a Karen who we love so much. And every time she pops up on social media and interacts with us, it excites us. It makes us happy. And she's just adorable.
Yeah, drop us messages. We actually genuinely love them. Rhonda manages our social security. No, that's me.
I wouldn't get given that responsibility.
No, definitely not. We don't even live in the States, and the thought of it is giving me hives. No, but Rhonda manages our social media, and whenever we get messages, it pops up on my phone too, and so I get excited, but Rhonda screenshots and sends it to me, and we're like, oh my God! Like,
yeah, for reals. We get excited about it. That's why we say DM us. We love it.
Yeah, so do contact us. We love it. Do drop us messages. Do comment on our posts. And also, I hate to say it because it's so cliche, but like, subscribe, follow, leave us a review, etc., etc. All of those things really matter on all these weird algorithms that I don't understand. So do it if you can, if you don't mind. On Spotify, you can leave us a review, 5 stars preferably. And then on Apple, you can actually write a review. But yeah, we'd really appreciate it because we're just trying our best here.
In light of our convo that we're going to have before I tell you the story today, I'm going to ask for people to share their result if they want to participate.
Yeah, because today for this chit chat segment, we have done the Myers-Briggs test.
Yeah, so, and you know what? Like, I always worry that people are like, oh, just get on with the fucking story. We don't care about your lives. And I worry about that because I do listen to other podcasts where I'm like, oh, just tell me the story. Because I have like a half hour to an hour journey for the school drive. And I want to know the fucking story before my journey ends, you know? And so sometimes the chit chat sort of frustrates me and I get impatient with it. And I always worry that people are like, okay, done, unsubscribe. But so I've done regular polls on our socials to ask, you know, do you want us to continue? And it really
seems to like it.
Yeah, it warms my heart that people are, you know, interested in, or at the very least tolerate the banal details of our daily lives. But today, I suggested today, let us do the Myers-Briggs test, the personality test.
Now, I have to tell you, because I did psychology at school, I have done this test throughout, and we went to a school where they made me take this test at the end to help me decide on my career path, blah, blah, blah. And I always get weird results because I am literally in the middle of everything, to the point where our guidance counselor at school told me I failed the personality test.
Too much personality.
No, it could, because the questions are always really weird, and it really, for me, depends on my mood. And so basically the thing is that, you know, you're on a sort of spectrum for these different personality types, and I'm always almost smack bang in the middle of each single one.
Probably because you're reasonable. You know,
well,
you're
yeah,
not,
but like I remember the special version that they made us take that was specifically helped to designed to help you decide what career you wanted. That it was stuff like, do you want a job where you drive a tractor? Not particularly. Do you want a job where you work with chickens?
Why did you say no to that? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
like they couldn't work out whether I wanted an agricultural job or not. And it's
I know you skew the results. Why the fuck didn't you want to drive a tractor? I think if I'd have had that option presented to me, I'd be like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
I just used as an example. I can't remember the questions.
And some of the questions, I'm like, I don't even have an opinion, because that has never entered my head until I came across it right now. That's not a factor of my life. It's not on my radar. I have no opinion. I'm fucking neutral on that.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it just really depends on my mood. Like, do I feel like talking to people in a large group? It really depends. Do I want to be social? It really depends. You know, so it's
that's why I said to you, it's interesting to do it on separate days to see, you know, when you're in different moods, to see if your answers, and also to get somebody else to answer it on your behalf, because sometimes we are not self-aware about, you know, we may think, oh, everyone thinks they're fucking rational and reasonable. Everyone thinks that they're always right, but
or they've got an impression of themselves that might not actually be, and we all do it. That might not actually be.
Everyone's got that, where they think something of themselves that other people see very differently, you know? So yeah, I want to do it on your behalf too, and I want you to do it on my behalf.
We'll do that another time.
And another thing that I found interesting was that so many of the questions were like the neurodiversity tests that we posted about before. So many of the questions were absolute parallels to that. So that was interesting too. But I did have, for the most part, I was at the very much agree or very much disagree. There was only a few that I was like, this doesn't even.
That's so interesting, because for me, I felt like loads of them, I put the one in the middle because I was like, it really depends, or I just genuinely don't have an opinion.
But you know what? The difference is between me and you, and I always said this, me and you are like 50% exactly the same. Our values are the same. Our sense of humor is the same. But whereas you've always been you understand the gray areas, and you're very rational, reasonable, and diplomatic. I don't have those skills. I'm very much a black and white thinker. I either love or hate something, or I'm completely indifferent. I don't have diplomatic skills at all.
I feel like sometimes you're better at like just when you need an answer or you need to know what to do. Whereas I'm very much the one to go to if you need to like understand a different perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas for me, every fucking scenario in my life is either a yes or a no, black and white. And I'm aware that this is something that I do need to develop, a skill I need to develop, to see that there's gray areas. Other people have perspectives.
I would say you're better at it as you get older. You were much more critical of
judgy, as Karen, the negative reviewer said.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to put it nicely, but if someone didn't do something in a way that you would have done it, you were much more judgy of it, and that you're much less as you get older.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still sometimes. It's not sometimes that I'm critical of them. I just don't fucking understand.
You don't understand it, yeah.
You know, and I think because for me, and this is one thing that in the test that I disagreed with a little bit, and I'll go into it, but for me, I think I'm ruled by my head more. So for me, it's like you make sensible choices. And when I see people making fucked up, weird choices, that's going to cause them complications. I'm like, why? Why?
Also, I will say I struggled with some of the questions because work D and personal life D are very different. So they ask you one of the questions, are you ruled by your head or your heart? Work D, head 100%. Personal life, much more heart involved, you know?
Yeah.
So and like in my work life, I'm super organized, spreadsheets, everything. Personal life, much more like free-flowing, spontaneous, or whatever. So I found that's why I struggled with it a lot, and why I chose a lot of middle answers, because it's like, well, it depends which D you're asking, work D or personal D, because they would be on the
I
complete
know,
opposite
and
end.
it is interesting because that's one thing I found very hard to merge to. Becoming self-employed, and now it's my fourth year of self-employment. My work persona, especially because I had a very serious job for 12 years as a teacher, where it was formal. I worked in a very formal school, almost corporate, and everything about it is formal, and it completely went against me as a person, you know, who's very open and an open book. And then when I became self-employed and I didn't have to fucking be the way I was told to be, and I could actually be me, I struggled to shift that. And even now, even as self-employed, like my work persona, even as a business owner, is still formal. When I do, you know, I predominantly work alone, but then when I do my, you know, virtual training for social media, I still completely snap back into formal me. Like on the podcast is where you get the absolutely unfiltered, genuine person. Whereas with clients, I'm very still heavily filtered because I cannot be effing and blinding with them. So yeah, and I would say that I'm still in that sort of place where I'm still holding back, because to be honest with you, I think it's okay to have the work you and the personal life you, and that they don't have to blur. And I cannot go into a virtual one-to-one training and start effing and blinding. And you know,
if you get a one-to-one with me, I probably will swear, but it will be less. All right, let's give them our fucking results already. We don't even know each other's results at this point. So you go first.
Okay, so.
Oh, wait. Should I guess what you got?
Yeah, I don't even really understand the different categories, by the way. I never understood these letters.
So, for those of you who don't know or have never taken the Myers-Briggs test, we've used 16personalities.com, I think it is.
We'll put it in the show notes because we want you to do it too.
So the number 16personalities.com. And that's from the fact that you can have, in theory, 16 different kind of combinations. And they measure you on 5 different spectrums, and they give you a percentage. So the first one's extroverted, introverted. Now, I think you are more leaning toward, I don't know, because this is one.
Well, this is the thing, Dee, I was going to talk about. This is the biggest fucking debate with me about it, is that my whole life I've been described as an extrovert. Because when we were growing up, we had so much less awareness about all this. If you were loud or not shy, you were an extrovert. If you were shy and retiring, you were an introvert. And we didn't fucking talk about mental health and feelings in, you know, the 80s and the 90s. And we should have, but we didn't. We didn't have that vocabulary. So my whole life I was described as an extrovert because I don't have a shy bone in my body, you know? I don't have a problem entering a social situation. I don't have a problem approaching a stranger. I've never had a problem. In fact, as a child, I used to do that way too fucking often. But
it's when we feel like it.
But to be honest with you, I am an introvert. And this is what I have realized in adulthood, is that I fucking hate group scenarios. I hate them. For me, 3 people, perfect. 2 people, perfect. A group party, like I remember in our 20s when you'd invite me to stuff like a party or something, I'm like, no, why would I want to do that? I just fucking wouldn't, because for me, small talk is like my biggest enemy. Being stuck, the worst case scenario for me is at somebody's wedding when you're stuck at a table with a table full of people you don't know, you're never going to see again, and then you have to make conversation from scratch, like, who are you? What's your name? What do you do for a living? It's so draining. You'll never see that.
You're so lucky you never had to do much dating, first dates.
Oh, God. And like, it's so draining for me. And I want to know, when I talk to somebody, I always ask them, tell me about your life. Because I want to know everything. I don't want to talk about the weather, you know, and it's like why at the school gates, I avoid conversation because I fucking hate that pointless, mindless small talk. Tell me something of fucking substance.
So tell me your percentage. I want to know.
I'll tell you. But yeah, so basically in adulthood, I've realized that actually you can be an introvert and not be shy. You know, I will always choose to be either alone or in a small group. I'm very family oriented. I'd rather see family who I see every day rather than other people. A group scenario, if somebody, it's like now an ongoing joke with people that they like invite me to stuff and they'll be like, but we know you're not going to come. You know, because they know I'm not going to come because I don't like group scenarios with new people. And, you know, it's partially because I'm so content with the friends that I have, most of whom I have known and been friends with for like 20 years, and I can count them on one hand. And my it's not that my quota is full, but I'm just very content with you know, the relationships that I have, that I'm not You know, I have a friend who says she always says she loves meeting new people. It gives her life. For me, I have the opposite of that, where it's just I'm just exhausted from meeting new people, and I think, yeah. So that's it. Anyway, let me.
So I'm similar to you, but I do actually enjoy meeting new people or whatever. But
that shit. You're sociable.
No, but it has to be when I feel like it.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like it, then I am exactly like you.
Yeah,
so,
you need your downtime. But you also...
surprise, surprise, I am 51% introverted, 49% extroverted. So I'm literally in the middle. What about you?
Okay, I'll tell you in one sec. But like, for example, you like group events, group scenarios, retreats, group holidays, group things. Whereas for me...
In small doses.
Yeah. But you have an element of enjoying it. For me, I have zero element of enjoying it.
But I have to be able to recharge a lot.
But the other interesting thing is, people are always surprised when I say that. Because they're like, yeah, but you're so chatty and friendly. And the thing is, my friendliness is genuine and my warmth is genuine.
We like really people.
Yeah, it's genuine. I'm not, faking it when I'm asking how people are, because I want people, even if I'm not enjoying myself in a group scenario, I want people to feel
it's not their fault. Yeah.
It's just that I, in that scenario, am waiting to fucking go home, and I will always be the first to go home, and I will be going there with an excuse to be able to exit as quick as I can. That being said, I feel very differently about like networking events, like business networking events, because I see
that's work.
Yeah, I see a purpose to it. I see a purpose that if I speak to enough people and the right people, then you're making links for your business, you're promoting your business. So I see that differently. Do I enjoy it? No, but like I will actually go to those type of group events occasionally, even though I don't enjoy it, but because I see value in it. What I don't see value in is small talk. And...
I tell you what you would love.
Yeah.
The Switchblade Sisters Social Club meetup.
Oh yeah, well, with our listeners.
Yeah.
Well, they're our people, Dee. They are our people.
They get it. They get it.
Yeah.
All right. So are you going to tell me?
Yeah.
Reg, we gotta start. We gotta
for
start
fuck's
speeding.
sake.
No, but listen. If we're going to talk for 20 minutes on each one of these 5 things, we're in trouble. So.
Okay, fine. So my personality type is defender.
Oh, so me too.
Are you fucking interesting? Okay, cool. We're gonna dive into this. Okay, so defender. Now, I'm not surprised, because especially where Dee's concerned about a lot of car park chats.
Yeah.
With people who were dicks to Dee about them not being dicks to Dee. So defender, okay, yeah, fair enough. Like, I will set fire to somebody's house if they piss Dee off. So it says defenders are very dedicated and warm protectors, always ready to defend their loved ones, blah, blah, blah. I am ISFJ-A, whatever that means. Now, I'll tell you.
I am exactly the same, -A. No, -T. Which makes sense, because you're the more assertive one.
What's the T?
Right. Have you not got this screen? You need to bring this up. Have you not
got
your percentages?
I got it.
Where's your percentages?
I'm telling you my percentages.
Okay, because it says at the bottom.
Okay,
so basically, I is introvert.
Mm-hmm.
S, did you say?
Yeah.
So that's the difference between intuitive and observant, because it used to be called something else. I'm 58% observant, 42% intuitive. So again, fairly half-half. What about you?
33 intuitive, 67 observant.
And what were you for extrovert, introvert?
27 extroverted, 73 introverted.
Okay. Then the F is for feeling. So thinking, feeling, 37% thinking, 63% feeling. What about you?
Let me check my feelings. Oh, where the fuck are my feelings? Oh, here. Okay. 43 thinking, 57 feeling. This is the one I wasn't 100%.
Sorry, quote of the season. Where the fuck are my feelings?
Yeah, I didn't really agree with that, because I would say that I'm more a head than a heart person.
And then the J is for judging. 79% judging, 21% prospecting.
Ah, you see, Karen, the bad reviewer, she was right. Where's the J?
And that's not really actually being judgmental.
I'm 99% judging. But it says decisive, thorough, highly organized, agree.
Yeah, no, that's not necessarily making judgments of other people. And then this is the one where we're slightly different. And this is actually, I think, a new thing that they've added, because when I first did the Briggs-Meyer test, there was only 4 categories. And this is assertive versus turbulent. And I'm 44% assertive, 56% turbulent.
Yeah, I would agree with that because Dee, you are like a newborn kitten. Do you know what I mean? You're so fucking nice. That like you're just so fucking nice. And you don't
What were you then?
75% assertive, 25% turbulent. Assertive, I think, doesn't even cover it. I'm not even passive aggressive. I'm aggressive.
Aggressive.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So that's
so
us,
there you go.
defenders. ISFJ hyphen A for Rhonda, T for D. So
AKA bad bitches.
bad bitches in the house that defend our other bad bitches. So we're going to post our results on our socials, and we would love if you told us what you guys were.
Post it on your stories and tag us, or post it on your feed and tag us, because I'm so curious what other people got, because it's all new to me. I'm very curious, because yeah, I wouldn't have been able to predict what I got, partially because I don't know what all these letters mean. Now I do.
Well, so basically, because mine are always like almost right back down the middle, every time I take it, again, like you said, on different days and different moods, mine will change a little bit. But I'm always, like with the introvert extrovert, like almost at the 50%. What are you laughing about?
Jim hasn't gone to work yet, and he's hopping around when we're recording, but he's like, how do I get in and out of the room without people noticing? So I modeled it for him the other day. I did like an action roll. I said, you just open the door and do an action.
So I saw the door open. Did he just action roll into the corner?
I hear a noise, and then I see Jim slithering onto the floor behind me.
Jim, you might as well pop up and say hi unless you're naked.
I think you might have been.
All right, well.
Speaking of which, can I just give you a little anecdote, and I'll be quick because I got to tell you the story. That, yesterday I said to Jim, out of curiosity, how would you, like, I was talking about how you're more likely to be killed by somebody you know than you don't. I said, how would you kill me? And then he went, without hesitation, and this is in light of the conversation we had when we were on the Blue Murder podcast, where you said that however he would do it, he would be very skilled. Anyway, so not that we think he would, but anyway, this is just lighthearted. Without fucking hesitation or thinking time, he turned around and literally cited all the key points from all of our podcast episodes that would constitute the perfect cover-up. For someone who doesn't listen to our podcast, he thinks he does because he's often present when we're recording, but he's obviously just hearing me. So he thinks he's an active listener, but he's not into true crime. But anyway, for someone who's not into true crime, fucking raise some eyebrows how he was able to just answer without hesitation. And he cited all the key points from various different episodes. So removal of the fingertips, removal of the teeth. I don't have implants, so there's no removal of that necessary.
Your tattoos? Did he mention your identifying
No, he
tattoos?
didn't. That could have been, yeah.
Don't tell him, because in case I need to.
Then he would scatter my remains away from home in different locations. Then he would get my phone and schedule messages after my death. For a guy who doesn't even know what a scheduling app is, he fucking knew that. There was some more detail, but I was like, for a guy who hasn't been listening to our podcast, you fucking know what you're going to do. But then I said, okay, but you haven't told me how you're going to do it. How would you actually, I mean, this is getting dark, but he's like, well, I wouldn't kill you, so he hadn't thought about that part. But he said, how would you do it? And I said, well, I would outsource it. I would never do it myself. I would outsource it.
But then
he said they can blackmail you. Didn't think about that. Why would they blackmail you?
Patricia, because what are you going to do if they, I don't know. I would get
there's got to be some professional hitmen out there, Well, professionals.
Paul and I, on our first date, this should raise red flags, but on our first date, we talked about how we would kill each other. And Paul said that he would use an icicle.
Oh.
Because it would melt and then there would be no murder weapon.
I think that's smart. I mean, the other thing I said, that is smart. The other thing I said was, if I were to somehow do this myself, is poison in the ear, because after a few days, it's no longer picked up in toxicology reports. You know, women often.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so as Sarita said, we mustn't leave any crumbs.
Yeah.
So talking about this on the podcast is not a good idea. And but this, can I just say that this is all in, you know, this is lighthearted. This is
Yes.
we are joking.
If you genuinely suspect your partner is capable of killing you, then please get help. Please.
Yes. Yes.
Ugh.
Yes.
Okay. Well, on to the next darkness. It's my turn to sit and listen to story time.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say it's your turn to present. I was like, no, I'm presenting. Okay,
no,
cool.
I've had a super massive busy week this week because I organize events for charities and stuff. And this week I had a massive conference that I was organizing, followed by the next day, same charity wanted to do another event the next day. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to literally break. But it's over now. I get my life back, and I can't think of anything better to do after such a manic week than sit back and listen to my sister tell me the case of.
So today is, you'll know this one, maybe not in detail, but the unsolved death of Gareth Williams, aka the body in the bag. Yes, a London crime. You know what I mean?
Yes, you're right. I do. I have heard of it. I don't know much about it.
You will know more when I go into detail. You may not know the intricacies, but you will remember it because it was a London crime. And this story intrigued me since it first happened in 2010. So, you know, a few years ago, but somewhat recent history. So Gareth Williams was born in 1978 and was a wealth mathematician and junior analyst for GCHQ, seconded to the Secret Intelligence Service, or MI6, who was found dead in suspicious circumstances at a security service safe house flat in Pimlico, London, on the 23rd of August, 2010. So Pimlico is not far from us. For those who know London, or those who don't, it's by Westminster and Belgravia. Nice area. And Gareth, you know when you get fond of somebody when you research them?
Yeah.
It makes it even sadder. So he was described.
It's normally the one that's dead. Or a
yeah,
family member.
You know who? Well, the other one was Kate Sheedy in the Levi Belfield case. So he was described as being a complete genius with an absolutely brilliant mind. Sorry.
Clear your throat. Clear your throat.
Too much vaping. With an absolutely brilliant mind. And his former teacher, I was watching, there's a really good documentary, I think it was Channel 5, called The Body in the Bag. And there's also a really good podcast episode by the podcast called Scotland Yard Confidential. So that's a great podcast, very, very well produced, beautifully produced. And the guy who hosts it has a real, like, proper voiceover voice, you know?
Love those.
Yeah. So his former teacher on The Body in the Bag documentary described him as...
Jim. Is he doing his action role?
Yes.
Tell him to come up and say hi.
I mean, he forgets there's a mirror right behind.
Yeah.
Jim, do you want to come say hi?
I'm okay.
So his teacher described him as an introvert and happiest when he was at the computer. And this guy, he was an absolute genius. He did his maths GCSE when he was in year 10. Sorry, he did his maths GCSE when he was 10 years old. 10 years old.
So GCSEs are what you do when you're like 16.
Yeah, when
he
you're
did
16.
it when he was 10.
10. Then he went to university, and he even started his PhD when he was 17 years old. So he got a degree while he was still in high school. And he was described as being happiest at the computer. And when I watched the documentary, The Body in the Bag, as soon as his teacher started describing him, like, I knew where it was heading. You know, you can probably guess as well. So although his teacher was not medically trained, he believed that Gareth was autistic. And I don't think enough has been written or researched about this. But everything that describes him points to that. And it is relevant to the story, I think. So he was, you know, he was amazing at maths. Like, he was just years ahead of his time. To start a PhD at 17 is insane, you know? He was very uncomfortable in social surroundings. He didn't have many friends. He would spend his break times, at the computer at school. Oh, sorry. So yeah, that part of the story actually makes me extra sad, and I'll explain its relevance to the case in more detail. But it was said that Gareth's autism made working for the Secret Services harder because of the secretive nature of the job. And he came from Wales, actually the island of Anglesey, from a town with a population of 2,000, where his family all lived like around the corner from each other. Everyone knew everyone, everyone knew everyone. And he found it very hard, not only in his job, but actually with family, to be so secretive about what he was doing, that he couldn't talk about it. Because although it is a generalization, autistic people are known to be very trustworthy, loyal, and honest, So the inquest found that his death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated. So, however, a subsequent Met Police reinvestigation concluded that Gareth's death was probably an accident. So probably an accident is what they said. So 2 senior British police sources have revealed that some of Gareth's work concerned Russia, and one confirmed reports that he had been helping the US National Security Agency trace international money laundering routes that are used by organized crime groups, including Moscow-based mafia cells.
Oof.
So there are various theories.
Fucking intense.
Yeah, I'll go into them more, the various theories. So the mystery behind Gareth's death has been explored in different documentaries, including Channel 5's Body in the Bag and Sky's Once Upon a Time in Londongrad. And after years of rumors and conspiracy theories and several investigations, here's what I found out about his death. So he was originally from a town called Valley in Anglesey, Wales. He began studying maths part-time at Bangor University while still in high school. He graduated with first-class honors at the age of 17 and then started his PhD. So after gaining a PhD at the University of Manchester, he dropped out from a subsequent postgraduate course at St. Catherine's College in Cambridge and took up employment with GCHQ in Cheltenham in 2001.
So that's the communications intelligence headquarters, isn't it?
Yeah. And where he had rented a room for nearly a decade in Gloucestershire. Now, interestingly also, on the Scotland Yard Confidential podcast, they also revealed that he had done you'll find this interesting, 2 fashion courses at St. Martin's, but he was secretive about them. And he'd even told his tutor he didn't want his friends or family to know about that. And I will talk about his interest in fashion and how that's relevant in a bit.
Oh.
So, yeah. He was intensely private and a cycling enthusiast and was due to return to Cheltenham at the beginning of September 2010 following his annual leave. So he had just before he died, he'd had a holiday to America, and he'd been seen out and about by Harrods, which is in central London, in Knightsbridge, seeming very relaxed the day before he was supposed to go back to work. So he went on holiday to the US in the summer of 2010, returning to London on August 11th, and was supposed to return to work later that month, ending his secondment at MI6 earlier than planned. And in the days after his holiday, he was captured on CCTV traveling around London on the tube, as well as visiting shops in the West End and Knightsbridge, withdrawing cash just outside Harrods. He also went to a comedy club in Bethnal Green in East London to watch the drag queen show, The Johnny Woo Experience. And police visited Gareth's home during the afternoon of Monday, the 23rd of August, as a welfare check, after colleagues noted he had been out of contact for several days. Now, the police officer that was first on the scene was somebody whose surname was Gallagher. And he walked into the flat and immediately noticed that it was like an oven. It was really hot, not just because it was a hot day in August, but because the heating was on and at full blast. And I'll explain that a bit more.
Weird.
Yeah, he then does a bit of a search of the flat, and he goes in the bathroom and he finds a red bag with red liquid leaking out of it. And he lifts the bag. He can only lift it 6 or 7 inches up and realizes that there's a body in the bag. and he finds Gareth's naked, decomposing remains in the bag in the ensuite of the main bedroom, and it was padlocked from the outside, but with the keys inside the bag.
Sorry, is this the one that they said was probably an accident?
There are many theories.
Okay.
There are many theories. That is one. And so this is the interesting key bit of information. Was padlocked from the outside, but the keys were inside.
The bag was padlocked from the
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
But the keys were on the inside. But I'm presuming you didn't need the key to lock that padlock.
Oh, interesting that you say that.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah, interesting that you say that, just because that hadn't occurred to me. So that's interesting that you
No, because I was just watching a case where there was a lock that had been closed, but it was key information, pardon the kind of pun, because that lock needed to be locked with a key, so they knew whoever locked it had a key, so they needed to find out who had these keys.
Yeah.
So if it was a padlock that you just click shut, then
that's a good point, and not enough has probably been discussed about that key fact. See, you always find those little gems, like with the shoes.
Steve is right. Maybe we would be good detectives.
I don't think I would be, because I didn't think about that. But you remember in the Lululemon episode when you said, but if that guy was that tall, his shoes wouldn't be that big. Do you remember? So yeah, Deanna's a little detective. So the police had gained an entry into his top floor flat, which was Alderney Street, Pimlico, at around 4:40.
I literally walked past that street yesterday.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, that's where my my event was yesterday. How weird.
Fucking hell. Okay, creepy. But guess who was one of the first police officers at the scene, D?
Steve Gaskin.
Nope.
Colin Sutton!
Yes! He makes an appearance. Our man, Colin.
So happy.
Yeah.
Anything Colin related.
Yeah. So former Detective Chief Inspector Colin Sutton, our dear friend and friend of the show, was one of the first officers to arrive at the crime scene and originally took the call the night Gareth was reported missing, stating, "I remain convinced the flat was tidied up after his death." So, interestingly, there was a lot of tension between the security services and the Met Police because security services tampered with their investigation. There was a lot of red tape. The Met Police were not able to communicate with them, and were sort of, what's the word? Security services gate kept a lot of information, wouldn't let them interview people, and that was problematic. So Gallagher, the first police officer at the scene, said very shortly after he arrived, security services came in and cleaned the flat and took potentially planted evidence. They took the front door. So they basically essentially tampered with the crime scene. So that really hindered the Met Police's investigation. Gareth's family alleged that crucial DNA was interfered with and that fingerprints left at the scene were wiped off as part of a cover-up. And some of the detectives who worked on the case in its early days were convinced the crime scene had been forensically dry cleaned, and that security service jargon for the removal of dry cleaned, which is security service jargon for the removal of incriminating evidence such as fingerprints and DNA. So
they, I just think if like the security services were responsible for their death, they would have done a better job of it in the first place, right? Yeah.
So there's theories that they were responsible. There's theories that they were trying to cover up. Maybe not responsible, but, doing a cover up. There are several theories which I'll address, but our man Colin said they may have been to protect national security, or it might have been something more sinister. If it's the case, then it could have been the perfect murder. So no fingerprints or DNA other than Gareth's own were found in the flat. Although curiously, none of this was found in the bathtub in which his body had been found, curled up inside a locked red sports bag. So, inconclusive fragments of DNA components from at least 2 other contributors were found on the bag, and there was a bit of 2 millimeters of hair in Gareth's hand that belonged to somebody else. And a forensic examination of Gareth's flat, which was a security service safe house, had concluded that there was no sign of forced entry or DNA that pointed to a third party present at the time of the spy's death.
Wait a second. I just want to make sure I understand. So this was the flat that he lived in.
Yeah.
But it was a security services safe house.
Yeah.
Presumably because of the stuff he was working on.
Yeah.
There's no DNA, but there was DNA on the bag, 2 different unidentified
Yes.
DNA.
And in the bathroom. So.
And in the bathroom. And there was this hair.
Yeah.
2 millimeters, did you say?
2 millimeters, yeah. In his
Tiny!
hand. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So Scotland Yard inquiry also found no evidence of Gareth's fingerprints on the padlock of the bag or the rim of the bath, which the coroner said supported her assertion of third-party involvement in the death. So,
I mean, even if he died by accident or natural causes or took his own life, he didn't put himself in the bag afterwards, did he?
Well, there's several different theories about that, about how he got into the bag, whether he could have done it on his own, because we're talking about a holdall. Yeah. It was specifically a red North Face holdall, which I'll post on the socials. So
you
like
say
a gym
holdall
bag.
Weird.
Well, how do you pronounce it?
You say holdall.
Yeah, what do you say?
Hold all.
You know what? You know when you read a word but you've never heard it?
Yeah, hold all.
Hold all?
Hold all.
Hold all. I've been saying
okay.
hold
You
all.
say how you want. Say how you want. That's not
bad.
Okay.
So the Met Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt said it was theoretically possible for Gareth to lower himself into the bag without touching the rim of the bath. And the key to the padlock was inside the bag underneath his body, but as you've pointed out, may not have needed the key to lock the padlock. Mm-hmm. So, on to the investigation. Gareth's date of death was estimated to have been in the early hours of the 16th of August, 1 week before he was found. So soon after the investigation started, the heads of the Secret Intelligence Service and Met Police met to discuss how the police would handle the investigation in light of the top secret nature of Gareth's work. The investigation was led by Jackie Sabir, who worked for the Met Police, and Gareth had recently qualified for operational deployment and had worked with the U.S. National Security Agency and FBI agents. And he was not only a code maker, but a code breaker. So that was his area of expertise. So the U.S. State Department asked that no details of Gareth's work should emerge at the inquest. And the Foreign Secretary at the time, William Hague, signed a public interest immunity certificate authorizing the withholding from the inquest of details of Gareth's work with U.S. joint operations. And after launching an investigation, the coroner, Fiona Wilcox, said that there were no injuries on his body and no signs that he had been involved in a struggle. His body was also free of alcohol and common recreational drugs because he wasn't a drinker or a drug taker.
So wait, I want to go back to this, sorry. So basically, in the inquest, the states petitioned and got it approved that no details of his work would come out in the inquest.
Yeah.
Which is a tricky one, because if he was killed because of that work...
Well, this is why there was tension between the Met Police and security services, because the Met Police were not able to be as involved in the investigation. There was red tape all around it. Ugh. And the security services had done some sort of cleanup job before the Met Police could
even begin. Yeah. Oh God.
So,
okay.
The Met Police, however, considered his death suspicious and unexplained, and the FBI also conducted their own investigation into the case. So, in December...
Wait, sorry, because you're going faster than my brain is able to keep up.
Mm.
You said that he didn't have alcohol in his system, no drugs.
Yeah.
And what else did you say? Like, what was the cause of death?
Well, this is the thing. Inconclusive autopsy. He had
inconclusive autopsy.
Well, sorry. He had
Did they turn on the heating
to accelerate the decomposition? Oh. Yeah. So I say inconclusive, but he did asphyxiate in the bag.
So he suffocated in the bag.
Yeah. And so there was one theory of a certain poison that can be administered in your ear that has not shown up after 3 days in a toxicology report.
Oh.
Yeah. It really depends which theory is to be believed. So in 2010, police released further details stating that Gareth had visited a number of bondage websites, although at a later inquest it was stated these visits were sporadic and isolated and accounted for only a small proportion of the time he spent online. Now I'm going to go into some details.
So this is like every guy.
Yeah, so I feel bad about some of the details I'm going to share, but again, they are part of the story. They could form part of the picture and it would be negligent to leave them out. But also his wardrobe included 20,000 pounds of high-end women's clothing, and 26 pairs of women's shoes. And it was...
He probably bought them off of us on eBay.
Well, he didn't, because they were high-end. We're talking Stella McCartney.
Oh, right, yeah, no.
Yeah, really high-end. But as I said, he had studied at St. Martin's. He had done 2 courses at St. Martin's that he didn't want even his friends, closest friends or family to know about. And it was debated whether the clothes were for him. Now, one of his friends, her name was Sean, and his sister, who he was very close to, seriously believed that those clothes that they had found, which were still wrapped up, were for gifts for them because he had a habit of buying them expensive high-end designer clothing, because his friend Sean was a fashion stylist and his sister he was very close to. So they believed, yeah, they believed that those clothes were for him. Now it seems, yeah, for them. And it appears that his sister didn't know that he was gay, because when asked if he had a girlfriend, she said no, but didn't mention nor a boyfriend. But again, he was a private person.
He might not have fully understood he was gay.
No, and, you know, or maybe just didn't want to share that at that point of his life. He was from a small village in Wales, and I don't know. Yeah. No judgment to Wales, but, you know, who knows? Whether
but he might have still been exploring his gender identity, his sexual identity, etc., etc. So,
and so police investigating his mysterious death suggested he was gay and liked to wear women's clothing and was interested in bondage, and that he died in a sex game gone wrong. However, it's also a theory that he worked undercover as a woman. Now, interestingly, there's been a few deaths of Secret Service's MI6 agents in sex games. Now, the other theory is that
in sex games,
sex games gone wrong. Deaths in sex games gone wrong. Now, the other theory is
convenient.
That exactly, that's one theory. Why are these all cover-ups for inside jobs? That is one theory. So what we don't know is whether the clothes were for him and whether he just liked to wear women's clothing, because there were pictures on his phone of him wearing them. Not necessarily the ones wrapped up, but him wearing women's clothing. He also did have a wig. There's another theory that he worked undercover as a woman, and one of the police officers, forensic investigator, Peter Falding, believes the unconventional attire was for work rather than pleasure. And Mr. Falding, who has advised the Home Office and FBI on search techniques, said the key question was never asked, were these clothes used for his jobs? And Falding said he was certain that they were used for work. He also said that Gareth would have made a very convincing woman. The new theory would explain why neighbors only reported seeing a woman coming and going from his London flat. Ooh. But he did have a lot of female friends. Now, he was only 5'8".
Wait, but then if he had a lot of people coming and going, and you said there was no DNA in his flat, so that's fucking...
Well, they did find some evidence in the bathroom, which I'll go into, but...
Yeah, but like if you have friends coming around...
Yeah, he did have friends. He did have specifically female friends. But at the same time, Falding, who was a forensic investigator, said that he believes the clothes were Gareth's, that they could have been used for undercover work, that he would have made a convincing woman, being small build, 5'8", you know, he was slim with feminine features.
I'm just looking at a photo of him, which obviously we'll be posting on social media. And I think he would make a very pretty woman. Yeah,
so as Falding said, he said specifically, I'm certain he made a very convincing female. He was slim with feminine features, and as a cyclist, he shaved his legs.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility that he did work undercover. Now, female wigs and makeup were also found.
Not that women need to shave their legs.
We don't. So there was video footage on one phone of him posing naked, wearing only leather boots. And as I said, I hate to add these details because it feels invasive and intrusive, but I don't want to omit anything that is potentially relevant. Now, the landlady of the annex flat that he rented in Cheltenham for 10 years when he was based there said that her and her husband had found him once shouting for help with his hands tied to his bedpost 3 years before his death. He said he was seeing if he could get free, and they cut him free, believing that it was sexual rather than escapology. Now, escapology is another theory that I'm going to go into, him experimenting with that as part of his job. So I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of...
So one of the theories is that he's into some kinky shit, and that's what went wrong.
Yeah.
With someone else or on his own?
Both theories.
Or both, either.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk more about whether it's possible that he could have done it himself or not.
Yeah.
Escapology was also a theory, a tangible one, because he had been given field clearance to work in the field. And one of the theories was that he was experimenting with escapology for potential scenarios in the field.
Right, so he supposedly locked himself in this bag
to see if he could escape.
Yeah, and he decided to do it on his own without telling anyone.
Yeah, but then at the same time, his sister disbelieves that theory because she said he was not a risk taker. He was not a risk taker. That's what I mean.
Like, I can understand wanting to try to practice all these things, you know, and how to escape it in these potential scenarios.
But in controlled settings.
Yeah. And if someone is like a rational computer nerd, I imagine that's what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So she believes that he was not a risk taker, and that's a highly risky thing to do on your own. So an expert brought in to examine the bag in which Gareth's body was found concluded that Gareth could not have locked it.
And also, sorry, but I'm just taking a while to catch up. It doesn't explain why the heating is on.
Yeah, well, the heating, I'm going to go into that, so cut that out. Cut that out. So a police spokesperson stated that if he was alive, he got into it voluntarily, or if not, he was unconscious and placed in the bag. So also, the heating in Gareth's apartment was found to be turned on and it has been suggested that an elevated temperature inside the flat would have sped up the decomposition of Gareth's body. Now, our friend Colin Sutton, who was at the scene, said in 2017, he said, this is 7 years after the incident, he believed the heating was turned on to accelerate the decomposition. He said that if he had been poisoned, then the chemical compounds might have vanished by the time toxicology results were conducted. So if the motive, this is what Colin said, if the motive for Gareth's death was around his job, then poison becomes much more likely. Subsequently, the police released an e-fit of 2 people they were seeking who were seen to enter the communal entrance of the building that he lived in June or July 2010. And none of the neighbors had any recollection of those people or knew of them. Now, they were a Mediterranean couple, and the police kind of came to the conclusion they were never going to find that couple. None of the neighbors knew who they were, but they were in the building roughly at the time. But that went nowhere. Then the lawyer for the family, Anthony O'Toole, at the coroner's inquest in March 2012, said that a second person was either present when Gareth died or someone broke in afterwards and stole items. But there was no forensic evidence to support this view. No sign of forced entry could be found. But it was noted that the door and locks had been removed by the time police experts had become involved, and that they were removed by security services. And that would have been a key bit of information.
So wait, the police don't even know if the door was locked or what?
Well, they know that there was no forced entry, but the door was removed by the time police had access. So DNA found on Gareth's hand turned out to be contamination from one of the forensic scientists, and the police determined that a Mediterranean couple they'd been seeking had nothing to do with the inquiry. So that couple that they found in the building, they determined they had nothing to do with the inquiry, but they also didn't find them.
Yeah, so how do you know?
So LGC, the forensic, and an e-fit of the couples was even released to the public. And Jackie Sabir, who was leading the investigation, she even appealed to the public for information, showing them the video footage of Gareth in his last days to see if anyone in the public had any knowledge. So LGC, the forensic company, apologized that the error had inflicted such pain on the family, caused by the incorrect data of a numerical code. So evidence at the inquest showed that it would have been virtually impossible for Gareth to have locked himself in the bag. Because of this, numerous reconstructions were attempted, supervised by 2 experts in confined spaces. Their names were William McKay and Peter Falding, who we mentioned before. Together, they made over 400 attempts to try and lock themselves in the same type of red North Face duffel bag in which Gareth's body was found. Over
400 attempts.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So they were thorough.
Yeah, and this was their specialism. So Falding told the inquest, "I cannot say it is impossible, but I think even Houdini would struggle with this one. I believe he was placed in the bag by a 3rd person." Now, what I don't know is were they the same size and weight and flexibility as Gareth?
I'm
Who was
sure
a-
they took that into account.
I hope so. I hope so. Because Gareth, as we know, was a cyclist, which means he was fit.
Flexible.
He had a small frame, a small guy with a small frame. So I hope that was taken into account. Shortly after the inquest, Army Sergeant Jim Featherstone Howe came forward to claim he had achieved what had defied the experts. Using a trick employed by airport thieves to steal from locked bags, I don't know what that trick is, Featherstone Howe was able to successfully demonstrate the technique with his daughter standing in for Williams. So they had managed to reconstruct it. Now, but what was interesting was that if this had happened in the bathtub, there was no fingerprints of Gareth's on the bathtub rim. So it was alleged that he couldn't have placed himself in the bag without touching the side of the bath. Then the other theory was he already in the bag when he was then placed in the bathtub. So in such a situation, a natural reaction as a survival instinct kicking in would be to struggle with as much violence as could be mustered. Yet there was no obvious signs of any damage to the bag or zipper, and Williams himself was curled up inside in a position described as peaceful, like fetal position. So
what the fuck? Sorry, but I don't think he had very much choice whether he got in the bag or not. I don't think he had very much choice about being in a fetal position. But
there was no struggle. He had no injuries on him.
But they said that he might have been knocked out before.
Yeah, that's the thing. Did he get in there alive, or did he get in there dead, already dead? That's what I
Did he think he was doing a controlled experiment because he was with someone he trusted to get him out of the bag if he couldn't get out? You know?
Possibly.
And they left him.
Possibly. And that's the frustrating thing, is that there are so many scenarios. And
you're not going to tell us an answer at the end of this, are you, either?
Well, you might be able to formulate your own, but Jackie Sapir said, she released a statement saying that anything that the public could have imagined, they had investigated. And they originally thought, when they opened up, the Gallagher, who first found his body, thought that his limbs had been cut off because of the way he was so carefully contorted. You know, his arms kind of really tucked in, and yeah. So former intelligence advisor Crispin Black, who attended the inquest, suggested the sex game gone wrong scenario is a favorite method of concealing murder for intelligence agencies. As I said, there's been a few MI6 murders in alleged sex games gone wrong. He said, disposing of an enemy and making it look like a perverted fantasy gone wrong is in the training manuals of every spy agency from MI6 to Mossad. And do you remember, I think it was in the 90s, there was that Tory MP who lived literally 2 minutes down the road from me, along near the river in Hammersmith, who had died in an asphyxiation, with like sex game gone wrong, with an orange in his mouth?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Can't remember his name, but there seems to be a lot of them in this field. So he was found, so Crispin Black, the intelligence advisor, said he was found in a locked bag in a flat full of women's clothing and wigs, and with his internet browsing history conveniently featuring bondage sites. He then said, the sex game cover is a very useful mechanism in a murder. Not only does it provide a disguise for the actual means and method of death, it trashes the reputation of the victim and blunts the energy of any subsequent investigation. So there was also the theory that the security services were releasing all this about Gareth to manipulate the perception of what I had actually.
Plus, did you say all the clothes were all still in the packaging with tags?
They
and
were.
everything?
They were.
So very easy to just buy them and bring them in and dump them there.
Yeah. I mean, there was...
I'm not saying he might not have had one or two or sometimes worn women's clothing, but if you wanted to make it look like a specific way, you could easily just buy a whole bunch, like a whole bunch of outfits.
He did have the clothes that were still brand new with tags. He did also have a wig hanging on the back of a chair. They did find makeup in his flat, and he did have pictures on his phone of him wearing leather boots, naked wearing leather boots. So those are the facts, as we've been told. It is also not the first time suspicions have arisen that GCHQ employees have been murdered in this way. So since 1983, Stephen Drinkwater, Nicholas Husband, and Kevin Allen have all died in bizarre circumstances that were ruled to be bondage or S&M sex games gone wrong. Now, were these cover-ups, or is there something about people that work in secret services that lends themselves to be interested in
they
S&M
need to
bondage?
they need to unwind in a specific way? Are they recruiting from like kinky sex clubs?
Yeah,
what's happening here?
There's obviously some sort of link, either the cover-up link or certain traits in certain professions. I don't know. It would be very fucking interesting to know.
I find it more believable to think that it's an easy way to get rid of someone in a way that like muddies the waters.
Yeah.
When they're investigating.
Yeah. So pathologist Richard Shepard stated it was more likely that Gareth was alive when he got into the bag due to the difficulty of arranging a corpse in the position his body was found in. Another pathologist stated that Gareth would have been overcome by hypercapnia, elevated carbon dioxide levels, after only 1 to 3 minutes in the bag. There were no gloves found in the bag and no fingerprints on either the padlock nor indeed the bag. So Gareth's family said they believed that Gareth's family said they believed that they suspected this person was a member of some agency specializing in the dark arts of the security services. That was Gareth's family. But remember, Gareth's family also were unaware that he was gay and potentially anything else.
Well, do we know for a fact that he was gay? You know, like,
good question.
That there's anything wrong with it. If he is, it's just, you know, just because he's tried on women's clothing and put on makeup or whatever. Like, I'm just saying that we don't seem to know very much about his romantic life at all, really, apart from what may or may not has been planted on him.
Yeah, he was a private guy. So much to the point that even his sister, who was he was very close to, wasn't aware. So that is a good point. So Fiona Wilcox, the coroner, said that she would follow the evidence wherever it led. Journalist Duncan Campbell reported that the inquest evidence indicated Gareth was one of a team of intelligence officers sent to penetrate US and UK hacking networks. He had attended the 2010 Black Hat briefings and DEF CON conferences, and Gareth had started with GCHQ in London in spring of 2009 after taking a number of training courses on active operational work. A few months before his death, he asked to return to GCHQ as he disliked the rat race and the flashcard competitions and post-work drinking culture. Those were his own words at GCHQ. And as a keen cyclist and walker, he wanted to go back to the countryside and was due to return in September. So he wanted to move from London back to Cheltenham, the HQ there. He also said in the documentary, it was also said in the documentary, The Body in the Bag, that due to his autism, he found the work culture difficult, especially the constant requirement for secrecy, not just in the workplace, but also with his family. So the inquest verdict. So the coroner found in a narrative verdict that Gareth's death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally meditated. The coroner was satisfied that on the balance of possibilities that Gareth was killed unlawfully. There was insufficient evidence to give a verdict of unlawful killing, and the coroner concluded that another party placed the bag containing Gareth into the bath, which is why there were none of his fingerprints on the bathtub, and on the balance of probabilities locked the bag. The coroner said that Gareth was probably alive when he was put in the bag and that he probably died shortly afterwards from CO2 poisoning or from a short-acting poison, as Colin said. No fingerprints were found around the bath nor the bag. And as I mentioned, the coroner was critical of GCHQ for failing to report Gareth was missing for 7 days. You know, it was several days before they actually were like, oh, where is this guy who's normally really fucking regular and on time? Which caused extra anguish and suffering for his family and led to a loss of forensic evidence because of that time lost. Because as Colin said, after 3 days, if it was poisoning, that would not have shown up in a toxicology report. So the coroner rejected suicide. And she also rejected interest in bondage or cross-dressing.
Yeah, sorry, but it's a very weird way to commit suicide.
Yeah.
To take your own life.
Yeah.
To zip you up in a fabric bag in the hope that it's fully airtight and you asphyxiate.
And another thing is, his sister said that she spoke to him shortly before his death and that he was in high spirits. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean somebody's not suicidal, because we've heard that before. But actually, sometimes people can be really on a high before they commit suicide.
Make that decision. Yeah.
So
yeah, it just seems like
I don't buy the theory of suicide.
He would choose a different way, a more I don't know. Yeah. Anyways,
and so she rejected the interest in bondage or cross-dressing or autoerotic activity being involved in his death. She said his visits to bondage websites only occurred intermittently and were not of a frequency to indicate an active interest.
And also, what do they mean by bondage? A little bit of handcuffs or like full on, you know what I mean?
And you never know how much relates to his job, because people were not allowed to know the details. As it's been said, you know, it could be that he was practicing escapology because he had been cleared to do field work.
Yeah, and so, also, like, our search history would be incredibly damning.
Yeah.
But we have this true crime podcast. But even before then, I would Google lots of random shit. You know, you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I wonder what decomposes faster, a body or a potato. I don't know.
Yeah, and you Google it. Field, somebody that works in his field, I wouldn't find much a surprise.
Yeah.
Because it's all a fucking mystery, and it's all...
But in any case, this person ruled it as irrelevant in terms of the death, which... Yeah.
So the coroner condemned leaks about cross-dressing as a possible attempt at media manipulation. And the coroner was highly critical of the Met Police's counter-terrorism command, SO15, who failed to tell the senior investigating officer before the inquest began of the existence of 9 memory sticks and other property in Gareth's office.
Let me guess, they took them away before the police had access to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is it. That's why I said that after the first police officer, Gallagher, arrived, shortly after, the intelligence services came to swoop the flat, basically, and his office. They took 9 memory sticks. MI6 failed to hand over the 9 computer memory sticks belonging to Gareth to the police investigating his death. Those were never passed on. Those could have held key evidence. SO15 failed to take formal statements when interviewing Secret Services officers. The coroner said the possible involvement of Secret Services staff in the death was a legitimate line of inquiry for the police. MI6 examined the memory sticks without telling the police. The intelligence service did not even inform the officer in charge of the case, Jackie Sabir, that the memory sticks even existed until 20 months after his death. Can you imagine all that time passing?
So nearly 2 years.
Yeah, all that key evidence that could have had something that could help solve this. MI6 made its own inventory of Gareth's belongings in his office, but did not pass it to the police again until 20 months later. Mobile phones and laptops found in his flat were taken by the police. Again, that could have held so much, probably the most vital evidence.
Who was he been communicating with in the run-up to his death?
They also examined electronic media, quote unquote, no detail, without telling the police. So therefore, the hostility or the sort of animosity between the Met Police and Secret Services at the time. So the Met Police investigation. The finding by the coroner prompted a reinvestigation by the Met Police lasting a further 12 months, which officers said had been allowed unprecedented access to serving MI6 staff following the strong criticism at the inquest of the spying agency's actions following the death of Gareth. Met Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt announced that despite a re-examination of the evidence and the investigation of new leads, no definitive answers had been obtained as to the cause of Gareth's death, and that the most probable scenario was that he had died alone in his flat as a result of accidentally locking himself in the bag. So, 2015, there were more developments. We are now 5 years after his death. In September and October 2015, a guy called Boris Karpichkov, a former KGB agent who defected from Russia and now lives in Britain, stated during interviews that sources in Russia had claimed that the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, also known as the SVR, was responsible for Gareth's murder. According to Karpichkov, the SVR tried and failed to blackmail Gareth into becoming a double agent. In response to the SVR's attempts, Gareth apparently claimed that he knew the identity of a Russian spy inside GCHQ.
Oh no.
Karpichkov
That probably
claimed,
signed his death warrant there.
if this is even true, Karpichkov claimed that Gareth's threat meant that the SVR had no alternative but to exterminate him in order to protect their agent inside GCHQ. So this is one theory. Regarding the cause of death, Karpichkov claimed that the SVR killed Gareth by an untraceable poison administered by the ear, which is one thing that Colin mentioned. Most recently, Norman Baker, a former Liberal Democrat minister in David Cameron's coalition government, and Boris Karpichkov, a former KGB agent who have spoken, it was in a podcast episode, claiming that Gareth was killed because he was close to, identifying the Russian mole. Sorry, I just repeated what I've just said, cut that out. Baker said, my view on the evidence we've been able to accumulate and that has been made public is that it was probably the Russians who did it. Gareth had Russian links in the sense that he was investigating Russian dealings in the City of London as part of his work for GCHQ initially and subsequently on secondment to MI6. He added, the scenario that I think fits the facts is that he was talking to a Russian in his flat. It then became clear that he knew the identity of this alleged Russian mole at GCHQ. Karpichkov then adds, it's only my theory. I think he was poisoned, probably incapacitated, making him unable to move. Now, Hamish Campbell, who is the now retired Detective Chief Superintendent who oversaw the investigation, has broken his silence after 13 years, and along with a barrister of Gareth's family, thinks it's time for a new review of the case. He told the Sunday Times that forensic material found at the Secret Service flat now held in storage could provide a breakthrough. However, detectives found a semen stain belonging to Gareth on the bathroom floor, leading them to suspect that Gareth was involved in sexual activity shortly before his death, which is believed to have occurred, believed to have occurred on the 16th of August.
Yeah,
Campbell,
I mean, maybe, but also
it's not unusual. It's
you know what I mean? It's his own home, and he could have just knocked one out in the morning before meeting. Well,
that's it.
Whatever.
I don't know what I mean? They think. Yeah, I don't know.
They're doing some investigating. Fuck no.
Yeah. So Mr. Campbell, who's in charge of the Homicide and Serious Crime Command at the time, said this led him to rule out a hit by the Russian state. Now, as you said, that doesn't mean that the semen stain has anything to do with the murder.
Yeah, it's in his own bathroom.
Yeah. He said, I felt it was improbable his body fluid could be present in a violent, non-consenting scenario. Considering Gareth's tidiness and cleanliness, we surmised the semen was from the day of his entry into the bag. But was he alone or not? It would be difficult to imagine him having intimacy with a Russian hitman or a female spy. So an unknown person's DNA was also found on a green towel in the flat. As for who may have been in the flat with Gareth, if anyone, Mr. Campbell said Gareth lived alone and there was no signs he was in a relationship. He suspects that Gareth entered the bag of his own free will, but acknowledges it would be bizarre to crawl into the bag voluntarily. Had Gareth been stripped and forced into the bag, there would have been marks on his body or other signs of struggle, the detective suggested. But Campbell said there were no signs of struggle or forced entry, and Gareth's body had no bruises or marks. He added that what the evidence leaves you with is that Gareth consented to get in the bag, either on his own or with other parties not yet identified. And there were some tiny scratches inside the bag near Gareth's head, but you can imagine that probably would happen just from getting into it, even if it was voluntary. Campbell, who also led a post-inquest review of the case before he retired, said, "I think that was unlikely to have been done with his fingernails. I believe those marks were made by the keys inside the bag." Gareth's iPhone had all of its data wiped on August 15th, 2010, day he was last seen alive.
Suspicious.
Yeah, the last day he was seen alive on CCTV, and hours before he's believed to have died. Why is a big question mark.
And was anything found from the cloud?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I feel like you could wipe your phone and they have ways of retrieving.
I don't know. I don't know. So Campbell said his team found nothing to suggest the spy's death was linked to his work or illegal searches he had carried out on MI6 databases. Many lawyers in murder cases will call a forensic expert to testify, even if there is no forensic evidence in the case, simply because that's a standard of evidence that jurors demand. In actual fact, only 13% of murder cases involve any forensic evidence at all. Usable DNA evidence is only left behind at about 10% of crime scenes. So even today, even today, the vast majority of murder cases are still solved with a combination of circumstantial evidence and witness statements, or footage like we saw in Levi Belfield case, with forensic or DNA evidence playing no part at all. So while the absence of handprints and DNA in the bathtub in Gareth's flat was unusual, it's certainly not impossible that the combination of heat and moisture in the bathroom could have degraded any such evidence. So the coroner concluded that Gareth was probably unlawfully killed with poisoning and asphyxiation, finding the lack of hand and footprints suspicious, and that a third party moved the bag into the bathtub. She highlighted that the way police and security services mishandled the case and mixed up the DNA, and that the leaks about Gareth's private life were an attempt to manipulate the evidence, and that security services' involvement in his death remained a legitimate line of inquiry. And there's a really interesting Channel 4 news interview from 11 years ago that our dear friend Colin is on. And Colin says that his best guess was that a third party was involved, and it probably didn't involve Gareth's job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, didn't expect that, because I was absolutely convinced.
Well, we'll just never know.
We won't know.
Like maybe
even Colin wasn't conclusive. He said probably.
Yeah,
probably.
I feel like maybe when you get these people that are working on these shadowy areas of intelligence, blah blah blah, that when there's a death, they probably just automatically do a cleanup, even without knowing the full story, just in case. You know, maybe they didn't even know what happened, but they were like, quick, get all the stuff, get all the data, you know, just in case.
But you know what's so sad is those question marks that will never be answered. For example, if security services hadn't gone and swooped into the flat and cleaned up and confiscated the memory sticks for 20 months, what would we have known?
If he was reported missing sooner.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And
that.
They managed
why
to get more
wasn't
forensic evidence.
And why wasn't he? To be honest, if a colleague doesn't show up for a day and you don't hear from them, shouldn't that raise alarm?
Especially like you always hear about whether or not it was like them, you know, like I'm reporting someone missing because they haven't turned up to work, and that's not like them. Like I would never have just not turned up to work.
I can't imagine. I've never worked with somebody who's just never shown up to work. Like,
and I know that there are people like that, yeah, but you would text or call or something if you were going to be late or if you weren't going to show up.
So it would raise instant alarm. I mean, I can't imagine any colleague I've ever worked for not being like, okay, well, we need to call their next of kin if it's even an hour late for work, you know, let alone days. For somebody who's so reliable and always shows up for work, why that wouldn't raise fucking alarm bells.
Yeah.
So yeah, this story, I find this a sad story, as all of our cases are, because partially because I find the guy so likable, and you know,
sounds adorable.
so smart, so sweet, exactly, you know, so likable, and just the fact that his poor family will not have answers, you know, and he was trying to leave London and leave his job there, you know, so all of those factors just make it that bit sadder.
I wonder if we'll ever know, like, if we'll ever have a scenario where we'll find out whether there'll be deathbed confession, or someone produces a memoir after they retire, or something where we might get some more answers, or Secret Service actually release something they found that they were previously keeping hidden.
Yeah.
There's possibilities, but it does seem unlikely.
I hope for his family's sake, but you're right. It does seem unlikely because it's security services, and a certain amount of information will be gate kept for security reasons, you know? And that's problematic, especially, you know, the fact that they weren't allowed to release any of the information about his involvement with the US. Well, what if that had played a part?
Yeah. The fact that they didn't even share information with the police.
The fact that his phone was wiped, the fact that the memory sticks were, I mean, these are the first places you would look for evidence. So, I don't know. Do I think it was a sex game gone wrong? No, I don't.
The only way I can see that, in my mind, as a possibility is if he was lured into, you know, some sort of false sense of security by someone pretending to be a love interest. Do you know what I mean? But even then, I don't know. But if he's not a risk taker,
that's it. When you okay, his sister was obviously not aware about a lot of his life, but
she's gonna understand some things about his personality traits.
But also, if you know that somebody's not a risk taker and that's not in their nature, then it just makes that not so believable. But again, people do have double lives sometimes, but I don't know, there's so many theories. There's so many theories, and I can't tell you which one I believe the most, because the poisoning also isn't you know, isn't something that I think should be dismissed. But I mean
the thought that he would, this non-risk taker, super professional guy who's really clearly good at his job, would decide to test different means of escaping different scenarios on his own in his flat when he's not due for work for a couple of days yet. You know what I mean? It seems highly unlikely that this is a complete fucking shitty accident, you know? And that no one else is involved. It's not a murder in any way. It's just he, you know, got into this bag on his own and suffocated. That just seems so unlikely.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't even seem like something a stupid person would do, let alone someone who's highly intelligent.
And you know what? I almost didn't want to cover this because I don't like unsolved cases, because we will not get an answer. We can talk about this round in circles for hours and we won't get an answer, because at the end of the day, we don't have access to the information. So we will not get an answer. So it will only ever be our theories. But yeah, it makes me sad because I like the guy and I remember it at the time. And you know, the thing is, what I remember at the time when I started researching this, I was like, oh yeah, the sex game gone wrong, because that's what I remember being pumped out so much by the media, that all these other facts of the story I was unaware of, because I think that was so pushed so hard at the time.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, almost every one of our episodes involves how the media manipulates things to their advantage or gets in the way of investigations or whatever. And yeah, obviously sex sells, so making out that this is some sort of sex scandal turned murder is obviously gonna sell the papers, isn't it?
But yeah, and the reason I brought up the fact that there was a, you know, it was believed that he was autistic is because how does that inform his behaviors? You know, well, it definitely informed the fact that he was not comfortable in that sort of work culture or with the secrecy. Did it inform anything else? You know,
well, like you said, trustworthy.
The risk,
was it easy to manipulate him in some capacity?
His tutor at St. Martin's said that he described him as being naive and not very worldly or street smart, you know?
Bless him.
And the sad truth is that a lot of people who are autistic are very trustworthy. And this is why they are often described as vulnerable, you know? So I'm interested in that possibility. Now, obviously, you can't diagnose somebody officially with, as being autistic after they died. This is, I would say,
especially if you, like us, have no qualifications.
Yeah, but in the field,
In the field,
we have a lot of degrees between us. Let's just clarify that when we're dropping those.
They're just pointless ones. Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously, his you can only go by his teachers and his family by their descriptions of what leads us to think that he's autistic. I would say that his teacher's description is a highly reliable source, but I'd be very interested to know about how that information relates to his behavior and maybe fill some of the holes in the case. The trustworthiness, the naivety, the risk-taking element, the
manipulating him to pose naked with leather boots on. You never know.
Yeah, so I find that a key facet of everything that obviously isn't tapped into, because he's part of the generation, now he would have been in his 40s, that remained undiagnosed. And because he was so quote unquote high functioning, even though I don't like those terms because they're ableist, because he was such a genius, and in a small town in Wales, how much did they know back in the when we were at school? He's not, Gareth wouldn't have been much older than us. These terms weren't talked about, neurodivergence, autism.
No, I mean, I know that we have a personal interest in these subjects, being neurodivergent and parents and aunt of neurodivergent children, but they are words you hear a lot today. When we were kids, how often did you hear the word autism? I think I properly learned what autism was when Rain Man came out.
Yeah, and even then, that's really just a very stereotypical portrayal.
Of course, yeah,
only one type of, only one, yeah. So,
but we just did. It wasn't ADHD.
And can I also say, not by an
health.
autistic actor either, because that's a big debate at the moment. Why are autistic actors, and there are many, not being used to portray autistic people? And I know I seem to talk about it every episode. I seem to somehow bring it up every episode, but it is, I believe, relevant to. Sorry, yeah, it is my daily life, but also aside from that, it is an element of this case.
Well, sadly, a lot of our perpetrators that we cover target vulnerable people. And as you said, the trustworthiness of having autism can make you vulnerable. So yeah, it is sadly gonna come up.
So yeah, I wish I had more conclusive answers. I really do, because it frustrates me, and I almost didn't want to get into it. And as soon as I started researching this, I'm in too deep now. I've got to do it, and I'm interested in it, but I'm also equally frustrated that there's no answer. So I would love to know, our listeners, have you heard or read anything more about this? If you want to hear and read more about it, watch The Body in the Bag on Channel 5. It's on Catch Up, or the Scotland Yard Confidential podcast episode on it. It doesn't have
links
more
in
information.
The show notes.
Yeah, it doesn't present any more information than I've given, but you may be interested if you're interested in this case.
Well, that's depressed me, especially because we don't have a perpetrator in jail, a murderer in jail.
And we like the guy.
Yeah. It shouldn't matter, because we always talk about.
But there's something endearing about him. Yeah. And that makes me even more sad. And all of the victims we like and are endearing. But I don't know. This guy I like.
So
next that's
episode,
it for today.
It's our last episode next episode.
Oh.
If you want extra stuff.
Prep me.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say, I told you at the top of the show, everyone, that we will be releasing some special episodes in our season break. So you'll get that. But also, if you forgot what we even said at the beginning of the season, you might want to sign up to our Patreon, and then you will have access to video episodes. So you can re-watch all of our episodes, but they are uncut, so you will Get all of our bloopers and whatnots, and yeah. But so next episode is our final episode of the season. Oh,
Is it a humdinger?
yeah, it is a humdinger. It's one I've been saving because I keep on being like, oh, I just want to read this extra book on it. I just want to do the, I just need to do this about it. I just need to talk to this person about it. It is one from London. It's one that you will remember. It's one that comes up. It's one that's fucked up.
Ooh.
Oh, it's one that gets more and more fucked up.
Ooh.
The
And
more
I know
you go
about
into
it. I know about
100% you do. 100% you do. Do you want clues, or should I
Yes,
just tell
I
you next
do.
week? Do you? What if you
Give me
guess
a
it?
clue. I won't guess it. Give me a clue.
No, because all the clues I can think about, you will guess. You will guess.
Okay, keep it till next week. Oh, I can't wait.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
Oh, okay. Can't fucking wait.
Okay.
Can we also remind our listeners to do their Myers-Briggs tests, and the link is in the show notes, and post it on your feeds and tag us, or in your stories and tag us, or just DM us. I just want to know what other people got.
Yeah. So we're gonna leave you for another week. So we're gonna sign off as your defenders. That is our personality type. And see you next week. Bye.
Hey there! Thanks for being a loyal listener.
Do you need a new website or want to boost your social media performance? Or do you hate podcast editing? You've tried optimizing your website and social media channels, but you're still not getting the listeners, downloads, and engagement you want?
We, the Safier sisters, love helping people with tasks that they hate. We know a thing or two about podcasts, websites, and social media, and we love working with other podcasters and business owners.
So why not head over to switchbladesisterssocialclub.com and go to our Work With Us section. We believe in collaboration over competition. A rising tide raises all ships.
Bye!